he had gotten the memo. 21 years ago, July 2000, St. Louis, Missouri, Archbishop Desmond Tutu had come to address the ELCA youth gathering. Our group from Trinity was actually part of the second gathering that year. You see, back then, when there were more Lutherans than there are now, and when there was less competition for the summers of young people, the church would have 2 gatherings every 3 years, back to back, to accommodate the 50,000 plus adult and teen participants in the event. Again, we were the second group, which had advantages. The music was always better, the bands had now practiced in the big arenas, everything tended to run more smoothly, and in the case of the Archbishop, he now understood to whom he was speaking. When he came to the first gathering, no doubt informed by some super churchy, make sure you wear your purpliest shirt and biggest cross ELCA rep, well, that's what he wore. The standard dress you saw him in again and again in pictures this last week as the world mourned his passing. But we were the second group, and he had met us, and now he knew the vibe of the t-shirt clad, exuberant, joyful group that is the ELCA youth gathering. And when he was announced, the Archbishop entered the stage to speak in the loudest, brightest, most joyful red Hawaiian or maybe African style shirt I had ever seen. He had gotten the memo. Not sure the ELCA ever got the memo. I cannot find a single picture of him in that shirt. But he had come, he had seen, and he understood. Seeing involves developing an understanding of what's being taken in. It means observing while letting go of our preconceived notions, our assumptions, prejudices. It means having the strength to operate from a state of vulnerability and openness. Seeing, in other words, is a lot different than just looking. My guess is, on this day of their calling, the disciples were mostly looking. They are right, of course, about Jesus. We know that because we read the passage of their calling from John, knowing the rest of the story. But they're not assessing things on any kind of deep level. They're jumping to conclusions. They're filled with hope about this man as he performs a few psychic tricks that reveal he has an unexplained knowledge about them. Frankly, their reactions are being referred to in the comedy you see, whether you like the movie or not, in Monty Python's Life of Brian. A longing for a leader, a messiah, that could make one run after shadows in less than flattering fashion. Our beloved disciples, well, they're going to get lucky. They're going to be right. But right now, they're mostly looking. It's going to be up to Jesus to help them to see, to understand that this is more than just seeing someone under a fig tree, that there is always something deeper. Even in the year 2000, as I'm sure it's true now, most of the young people at the ELCA youth gathering did not know a whole lot about the struggle against apartheid that the Archbishop was a crucial part of. They did not know that in South Africa and in occupied Namibia, violence and murder had been used to keep the non-white population in its place by the white population that had arrived with colonialism. They also did not know that part of the healing process that came to that land with full democracy was the establishment of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, I believe the first of its kind, headed by this man in the red shirt, talking to them. That commission listened to the horrible stories of oppression from victims and also listened to the stories and confessions of many of the perpetrators on both sides of the conflict. And they worked to achieve something remarkable. Not jail sentences, not physical punishments, but rather what the title of the group said: reconciliation, forgiveness. The group did more than look at the past. It did more than look at the future. It chose to see. It saw that the only way to end the cycle of violence that was the history of this country was to embrace the painful but liberating path to forgiveness, to put down the swords in favor of plowshares, to restore the oppressed and the oppressor to life. Rather than look, assume, and act rashly, Tutu and the Commission taught their people to see. Of course, it was not perfect. The group failed in a multitude of ways, but it was also an attempt to bring justice, a kind of justice Jesus would embrace, in a way most of us, me included, would find unimaginable. I can't imagine being oppressed, watching friends and neighbors jailed, abused, murdered by a group in power, and being able to do such a thing. But that's what this man and his contemporaries were able to do. They tried to see things as Jesus would see them. And of course that means seeing things differently. And it's what really seeing can do for the world. The danger of making Jesus simply a ticket to heaven is we get let off the hook. We make a decision, and then we can spend our lives just looking at Jesus, but not really seeing what he needs us to see. We don't see the embrace of poverty, the identification with the poor. We don't see the selflessness, the willingness to endure struggle and hardship to bring those in need good news, healing, food. We don't take in the openness to those of other cultures and the willingness to offer them God's love without insisting that they change who they are. We don't take in what Jesus is really calling for when he asks for a change of heart. We don't take in the enormity of the sacrifice as he calls out for forgiveness for even those nailing him to a tree. We risk not seeing our Lord and his call to see life around us differently. In a way, we risk living lives that are dull, common. The Archbishop's message, oddly, was about seeing on that day, and he told us a story that he would tell often in his life. A farmer had a few chickens, unremarkable, common, happy to spend their days pecking the ground. But there was one chicken who looked strange, big, clumsy. It mostly acted like a chicken, but it struggled to walk in the manner of its farm mates. It wasn't as good at pecking the ground. Didn't lay any eggs. Pretty useless chicken. And then one day a visitor happened by and he said, "What is that?" And the farmer said, "Well, it's a chicken." And the visitor said, "That's no chicken, that's an eagle. Give him to me." And the next morning, the visitor took the eagle in his hands, and he climbed the highest mountain he could find. And he took the eagle and he held him out, and he said, "Fly, eagle, fly." And the eagle looked back at him, a questioning look in his eyes, and the visitor said, "I know you don't get it. I know you don't see it, but I see you. I see who you are. Fly." And the eagle rose up in his hands. He shook out his tail feathers. he spread out his pinions and he rose. Up and up and up, higher and higher toward the sun. Jesus sees us. Jesus sees us for what we have been created to be. And we are not chickens. God says to each one of us, fly, eagle, fly. And God expects us to shake off the dust from our tail feathers and to spread our pinions and lift off. To fly toward goodness, towards compassion, towards generosity, towards caring, towards loving, towards the sun. Fly, eagle. Let us see ourselves as Jesus sees. Let us see life as Jesus sees life. Fly.